Serious, people of Reddit, what's your if I'm going down I'm taking you with me story? I was rock climbing and this guy who was my belayer for the day was kinned off a dong. Well, no surprise, Dickwood spends most of his time flirting with a cute girl who is friendly but seriously not into him. He gets chewed out by our lead for not paying attention, which means he continues to not pay attention as he is incapable of picking up cues. Well, there's me, 25 feet or so off the ground with my rope slack and feeling my hand slipping because I'm just running out of steam. Now, having told him 3 times to pick up the slack, I look down and see he's completely ignoring me to chat with this girl again. My mistake was looking down. As I reach to readjust my weakening hold and slip, the rope shoots out of his limp, sausage-like fingers, and I began to fall. I know a properly tied off rope shouldn't do that. I don't know how he fricked that up too. My only thought is if I'm going to fall, I'll dang well land on him. Well, I did. I landed straight on his cushy, butthole body. I was barely injured. He was taken to hospital after having 80 odd kilos land on him from 2 stories up. I never happened to see him at that rock climbing club again. You took the going down quite literally here. Super simple, but I am notorious in my friend group of having a fear of water. I'm okay in pools since you can, hopefully, see the bottom, but even shallow lakes, rivers and oceans are a no-go for me. Some friends ended up renting a boat and wanted to take it out on the lake and begged me to come out. I kept telling them no way in heck would I ever willingly go out and sit in the middle of a lake. Finally I caved because I dunno, they were friends and really wanted me to go. Someone said it could really help me face my fears. Even though I didn't plan on getting in the water, I'm not going to wear jeans to the sunny beach, so I left my wallet, keys, and phone in the car. Within 10 minutes of getting to the middle of the lake, Buddy, who suggested I face my fears, and I think his brother, asked me if I got the time. I shrug and tell them I left my phone back in my car. They both lunge at me and start throwing me overboard. I latch on for dear life and fight as if the river is lava, because to me it essentially is. I eventually realize I'm 100% going over and there is nothing I can do except let go of the railing I was gripping onto and instead grab them both as I pulled back and forced all 3 of us into the water. Getting back on the boat was easy. It had a little ramp and ladder for climbing in out, and you can bet your butt I was the first climbing back up. The brothers got mad at me because they had their phones in their pockets and I ruined them. But everyone quickly pointed out that they pushed me in the water knowing I hated it and that they deserved it. They argued that they intentionally tried to make sure I didn't have anything electronic on me, but everyone shut them down. They were allowed back on the boat when they apologized. My friend apologized and I actually did chip in to help him get a new phone later. But his brother swam back to shore and got even more upset and demanded I help him with his new phone since I helped his brother. But he didn't feel bad or think he did anything wrong, so frick that guy. What will it take to get people to understand that facing your fears only works when the person decides to face their fears and is in control of the situation? Otherwise you'll likely make their fears worse since you're just adding more negative associations. When I was stationed in Korea, my sergeant threatened to tell command I was drinking underage. Fortunately I had pictures of our squad drinking and he was present, so I told I would show them to command if he told on me. Current job. Previous manager. I was on a team of 2, and when the lady I worked alongside with quit, they decided not to replace her. I have a young child, who, as children so often do, get sick a lot. Being the only person on my team, and the most important role for our office to function since it is literally the first step in all our processes, I had a very hard time whenever I used my PTO with short notice. I had given my manager multiple ways to fix the issue, but she never would hear any of it. She also was in a remote office, so she had zero clue what I did with my day. She finally sent me a very angry email basically telling me I could not use my PTO for emergencies all the time when my son got sick. I wrote back a long, detailed list of every method I suggested to fix the issue, along with the fact that I was the only person in my position for months, and that our company policy states in bold letters that using PTO because you or your loved one is sick is not only acceptable, but encouraged. My manager responded to my email by stating she would forward my concerns to HR and that I should probably polish up my resume. But HR was in our office that day, for the first time in 6 months. Great coincidence, right? So I went in, asked if I could speak about an issue concerning my manager, and explained everything as it happened. The HR rep had this look on her face like she was going to murder someone. She asked me to forward the entire email chain to her, which I did. Then she called me back to talk to her. A few people I talked to were aware that the manager and I had issues, and the lead of every team in our office basically told the HR rep that the entire office can't function without me and that I've been doing the work of 3 people for 9 months. Later that day, my manager sent me a very angry message over email basically saying I was fired and that I was to pack my things immediately for failing to do my job and because I was causing a hostile work environment. I forwarded this to HR rep and then walked to her office and asked if I should pack my stuff. She looked at me and in a single, sweet sentence said not a chance, she's royally fricked. And that's basically how my manager went from making $80K a year to being fired on a Wednesday with no compensation, no benefits, and no way to collect unemployment. All around a productive day. When I was in 8th grade, we had to create a presentation on a book we had just read, including a skit from one of the scenes. Here's the best part: we were forced to work in groups. Being an introvert, I hate group work. What I hate even more is when your group mates don't do their work. The day we were assigned the project, we decided to divvy up the slides equally. It was a Google Slides, so we could all contribute to the same document. The class ended, and I had already finished one of my slides. One boy only changed the color of the title, and the other 2 didn't do anything. 2 days later, I had finished all of my slides. Nobody else had done anything. I offered to start the script for the skit since I had finished, and asked for the others to contribute. Nothing. A couple more days passed. I had finished the skit as well, and all of the other slides were still empty. Finally, the night before the assignment was due came. I had hoped that even a title had been added. The slides were still empty. I finally decided to just finish it myself. I was up until about midnight, and the slides were not the best quality. Finally, presentation day comes. Of course, my group mates felt absolutely no remorse for doing no work. It was our turn to present, and my group mates nominated me to present. I finally decided to show them the consequences of their actions. I told them that we were all to present the slides we were supposed to work on. They obviously didn't know what they were doing and were extremely unprepared. My grade went down, but theirs went down even more. I told them that we were all to present the slides we were supposed to work on. You should have said instead each one presents the slides they worked on. Then, do all the presentation yourself and tell the audience in the end. And now my group mates will present their work. Step aside and look into their eyes dead cold and wait like everyone else for them to talk. My grandma lived on a main road in Miami. She had grapefruit trees in her yard that grew huge grapefruits. When I was little, my older brothers taught me to roll the grapefruits out into traffic and watch them splat as the cars drove by. They couldn't see where the fruits were coming from because we hid behind the bushes to launch them. It was kinda like reverse Frogger. The goal was to get a good splat. When I was 15, Grandma's health was declining, so my family stayed at her house for a couple days to get it cleaned out and ready to sell. I decided it would be fun to take my younger brothers out and show them grapefruit splat. After about 10 minutes of us hurling double-digit grapefruits out into traffic, one of us rolled a big, fat grapefruit right in front of a cop car without paying attention. We all ran to the backyard, but when I looked out front, my youngest brother Barry was still out there. Apparently he froze up. I come walking up hurriedly to the police officers and tried to play it off. What seems to be the problem? Officer, I asked. Who are you and where are this boy's parents? He asked. I replied, I'm his older brother. My parents are at the grocery store, so I'm babysitting until they get back. The cop was super chill and goes, okay, well, your brother was rolling grapefruits out into traffic. So we just stopped to explain to him why that's dangerous. I looked over to Barry and winked to let him know that we were about to be off the hook, and I said to the cop, I'm so sorry. I'll make sure to have a talk with him and it won't happen again. Well, frickin' Barry misread my wink as a thread, 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 my wink as, and my dad's not gone. He's inside. The cop looks down at me with a huge grin and says, let's go see dad. I proceeded to get into trouble for bringing my brothers into something dangerous, then grounded for lying to the cops. I was at a church camping trip for boys at Yosemite. One of the guys in charge was new and a real douche. He made it his goal in life to punish every kid. I was a real rule follower, so he couldn't punish me and he started getting angry about that. He would even drop comments like your turn is coming, etc. Now, when I was younger, I was really thin and small, but in my mind I was like all the other kids and mentally tough, so this got me in trouble. I would get injured on these trips and the head guy was always getting in trouble with my parents for not keeping me safe. So one of the rules is that nobody can ever be alone. If you are caught alone at any time, you are in trouble. So, we're getting the campfire ready for lunch, and some kid comes running up to the group and says that there's a woman bathing naked in the river. All the kids get up and run to go see. So, to not be alone, I have to go with the group. Now, I don't go to the edge and look, because I didn't feel like it was right to go spy on the poor woman just trying to enjoy nature. Anyway, douche leader sees his opportunity and says that since I got up and went over with the group, I was also in trouble, despite the fact that I had no other choice. Punishment at this camp was holding a giant rock over your head. Somehow, I was the only one that got in trouble, not everyone else that looked, proving that he didn't care about actual rules but just that he had power over everyone. I was supposed to hold this rock over my head for 15 minutes and then come back. Of course he was too lazy to oversee punishments, so I was supposed to do this alone, which is another problem, since there are bears and perverts around. No kid is supposed to be alone. So finally, since I didn't deserve this punishment, I was going to take this guy down. So I dropped the rock on my head on purpose. Then I just lay there. I could feel a large bump rising on my head. I must have laid there for about 35 minutes. Finally, they realized that I didn't show up for lunch and someone asked where I was and then everyone ran over to see me laying there with a rock next to my head. I said that the last thing that I remembered is that my arms were getting weak holding the rock over my head. Then the leader checked my head and found the bump. He was livid, because now he had to tell my mom I got hurt again. When asked why I was holding a rock over my head, I made sure to let them know that it was douche leader's punishment. He tried to deny it, but 25 young voices called him liar simultaneously, since they had all endured the same punishment. Douche leader was stripped of his power and spent the rest of the camp as just another camper. In fact, he called someone and left a day early. It was his first and last activity with the group. You literally hit yourself in the head with a rock to get back at him. This is beautifully petty. In 7th grade my teacher decided to use process drama to teach about the Holocaust. He told us we can hide anywhere in the building and if we successfully evade him looking for us, we will get a bunch of extra credit. Conversely, if we are caught, we will get 5 points for each other classmate we rat out. I hid successfully in the computer class under a spare TV card that barely fit me. My soon-to-be not friend had chosen poorly in the same room and was easily found. Upon walking out I very clearly remember him yelling, "Wait, Yams is in the corner under the cart." I can't remember being so mad at someone. Ratted out for a mere 5 points. I yelled at him and Def overreacted. The lesson being a process drama. That was kind of the point. To experience the fear and potential rage at your neighbors for ratting you out. For those of you who don't know, this lesson style is to give the student first-hand emotional connection to whichever content you'd like to teach. It's incredibly effective. TLDR. I was taken down along with a classmate and lost extra credit. We honestly need to do that more in education. Hands-on or situations like that are way more memorable and can lead to having empathy. Something I fear we lack in first world society. My uncle used to own a hardware store in our crappy little town. He wanted to put up a cover between 2 buildings that he owned but the town council wouldn't let him. They never gave any real reason like, we need to leave the area uncovered because of his building codes. They just went on a power trip and said, "You're not gonna do it." Eventually due to some other power trips my uncle threatened to move his shop a few towns over. Town council went all, "You're not gonna do it in a I dare you way." So my uncle did just that. If I remember correctly he paid the most in taxes so all the money the town was getting from him disappeared. Most of his employees were in high school and couldn't drive. When he moved the kids went with him. Since the parents had to drive their kids to their job they decided they would also pick up groceries and other things they needed while they were in the new town. so the cloth shop and grocery store went out business. Since no one could get what they needed in our small town, just about everyone moved. Now the town is run down and there's barely anything here. My dad said it used to be a nice little town. Now hardly anyone lives here and everything is falling in. My uncle even warned the council, if I leave I will take this town with me, but they didn't listen. Jesus, your uncle didn't just drain the lifeblood of the town. He slit its throat and watched it bleed out. This should be on our nuclear revenge. My next door neighbor kept picking my plum tree dry when I would go out of town, so I cut it down out of frustration. No plum jelly for anyone. I have a plum tree and it'll have nearly ripe plums all over it one day and none the next. The birds always get them just before they're ripe, so I rarely get any. I had a group project I had to do with 4 other people. 3 out of the 4 were great, but there were roles each of us had to fill in the group for the project to work right. The final girl never once participated in the project, so her role was completely empty and it was dragging the rest of us down. We couldn't just fill in for her either because she kept her specific instructions to herself. The other 3 and I did the best we could, but our instructor didn't seem impressed. He had a few questions about how we came to our conclusion and who did what in the group. The other 3 were trying to keep focus on the roles they filled, but the instructor was asking about the role that the one girl skipped out on. I answered that we didn't have anything from that role because what's her butt didn't come to any of the project sessions. We just did what we could without her. Until that point, the girl that didn't do crap was standing there acting like she deserved any of the grade we all got. Once I said something, the other 3 girls confirmed that yes, Becky's butt did 0% of the work. She tried to say she was just really busy, but another girl shut her down by saying she saw her at several parties the past couple weeks. That girl got a 0 and the rest of us got like an 85 or around that number. I felt like a snitch, but frick that girl. When you are in trouble at school, it helps that you're related to someone who works for the school district. I had a math teacher my junior year of high school who was also the cheerleading coach, and she worshipped every student who was an athlete, and she hated theater kids. She would make theater kids, or basically any non-athlete, trade seats with a student athlete because they need a better seat to view the board. She basically told us that student athletes' education was more important than ours. One day, the drama club was planning a field trip the same day of a really big math test. My math teacher was already fully aware of the field trip and said that the theater kids are allowed to take the test at another time. Well, the day of the field trip comes, and she pretends she is unaware of the field trip. She called up our drama teacher and threw a tantrum that the theater kids were missing. We then got in trouble with the drama teacher, and we received a 0 on the math test. I told my aunt, a math teacher, and the head of the math department for the whole entire school district, about this, and she looked into it. Teacher didn't get fired, but got in trouble. Well, she found out that it was my aunt that reported her, and now she was purposely failing me. I actually had no trouble in math, especially since my aunt was tutoring me, and I was doing well. So there was no reason why I was failing except for the fact that the teacher wanted revenge on me for getting her in trouble. So this time I tell my aunt, but in a different way. I say that my teacher's material is not making sense, which was actually true. She had no idea what she was doing, and my aunt called her up and asked her what she plans on teaching her students. My teacher was caught by surprise and didn't know how to exactly answer my aunt and kept giving BS answers. My aunt then looked into it some more and confirmed that basically, the teacher had no idea what she was doing. And well, she got fired. I did have to take summer school since I still failed her class, but I basically ended her teaching career. In a tech writing class I took, there was a group project that saw all students separated into groups of 4. We figured out what sort of assignment we were doing and decided up responsibilities. It became obvious from day one that our 4th team member had no interest in contributing and planned to just skate by on whatever grade we got. Rather than accept that, I went straight to the professor, told her what I thought was going on, and asked to either be reassigned or even allowed to do the project solo rather than settle for a lesser grade due to one crappy teammate. She offered a better deal for me to bring back to the 2 contributing teammates. We do a 3-man presentation, and if our lame duck fourth doesn't have anything to contribute, he would be graded singularly. I tried throughout the duration of the project to get him on board and involved, but he blew off every opportunity to contribute. Presentation day came and the 3 of us who worked got top marks. Then the professor came up and called out our 4th guy in front of the entire class. I told you all on day 1 I don't tolerate freeloaders in my class. 4th guy contributed nothing to his team's project, so he will not receive his team's grade. Provide nothing, get nothing. He never showed up for another class, but he also never withdrew. The dipshit ended up with an F in the course. Couple other folks in the class knew him. I learned later that he did this for multiple classes that semester and ended up getting kicked out the next semester. Reminds me of a story my cousin told of his math class in college. Got assigned to work with, as he described them, Russian kids who refused to talk to him and wouldn't let him contribute to the group project. He failed that class and later dropped out entirely. In one of my first jobs, a colleague who was threatened by me, the new worker, shy, inexperienced, learning little by little, just out of college, was slowly putting ideas in the head of my boss until I get fired. The day after I was fired, there was a meeting with the boss and other important positions in which I had been working hard to make a good impression. I knew who would take all the credit: the lazy bastard who had stabbed me in the back. It turns out that one of the things that I knew how to do was synchronize the files on my personal computer to an internet cloud, in order to have my files available at home. I knew that my partner was too lazy and would not thoroughly review the documents, so from the comfort of my home I modified the presentation. Some information here and there, nothing excessive, and like the icing on the cake, a hidden message after a photograph on the last panel that would only be visible during the presentation. Thank you for not paying attention to the erroneous data and not looking at the information that does not match in the least with what I exposed. I am glad nobody will notice because they are not interested and will not ask any crap. Frick off. I would like to have been there, but as far as I knew, the whole floor heard the screams of my boss. I know, it wasn't very mature, but it was satisfying. Revenge is a dish best served lukewarm. When I was a little kid, my mom made me hold her hand to cross the street out of Publix, you know, as parents do. She slipped on a wet spot on the street, screamed cocksucker, and yanked me down with her. Then she had some kind of misfired reflex and slapped her hand over my face to try to cushion my fall, I guess. At the time, I thought my mom was randomly trying to assault me or SMTH right in the goddamn parking lot. Dogs must feel the same way when you get up in the night to pee and accidentally hit them with your foot. To them, you got up in the middle of the night just to hit them and walk away. In 3rd grade, my friend told my crush I liked her, so I told everyone he put her finger in his butt. He didn't, but I had a reputation for never lying, so they believed me. Growing up, my best friend and I got in trouble for cutting up brand new, expensive jeans to make shorts. Her mom was, rightfully, screaming at me, so I said, "What about her daughter?" She asked me to and handed me the scissors and got us both grounded, so at least we could sit together in her room, lol. Had an absolutely terrible boss at a hospital. She had been there for almost 30 years and was almost omnipotent. She was an absolutely horrendous human being in every way, shape and form. She liked to pick one person every day at random that worked with her and pick on them until they cried. She would then fake false feelings about how sorry she was, that she didn't mean to do it, and so on. Our department ran the Toys for Tots drive at our hospital. She insisted that all toys were kept in her office. It didn't take me long to figure out she was stealing the toys. I took photographic evidence as well as writing down everything I could in the ensuing months about everything she was doing. I knew at this point she knew that I did not like her and that I had pretty much figured out what she was about, so she turned her attention to me and made my life miserable. I finally did quit. However, I made it my mission to take her with me. Everyone in the hospital, including the CEO, we're somewhat afraid of her and we're just trying to get her to her 30 years so she could go out naturally. After I quit, I sent photos and all of my written documentation to the CEO of the hospital, who I had tried to talk about all of this stuff with before I left but could tell he was not listening. I then wrote if she was not dealt with, I was going to notify the local news channels about what I knew was going on with her. Needless to say, she was forced to retire immediately upon her 30th anniversary, which was a week away. She still won in this story. She wasn't fired and just got to retire early instead of putting in the work. I did customer service for a major cable company as tier 2 internet support. First native English speaker you spoke to. I worked for a third-party company that was contracted by the cable company. The company was terrible, like Walmart terrible. I got written up for hitting the exact minimum quota, intentionally, every month without improving. They promoted people to managers as a trial for 3 months, then put them back to their previous position. There was no pay change, and I had to quit my part-time job that I loved because they couldn't get the schedule correct. My new manager was a grade A jerk and was trying to get me fired, and so I decided to bring him with me. Shortly after he took over, he actually was friendly towards me and actually messaged me on work chat about an escalation call he was on. The guy is going to kill himself because he didn't have internet, and proceeded to joke about the guy killing himself. Now work chat can be configured to save everything locally on your PC, and I made sure it was set for that to cover my butt. I decided to quit about a month after this incident. Sent my resignation to HR and CC'd him. Attached was also the transcript of the conversation, and I cited that as one of the biggest contributors to my leaving. He was let go. When I was in my second year of Canadian high school, basically 8th grade, our final English project was to make a movie in teams. This project was going to take half a year to make and was worth a lot of points in our grades. I was pretty hyped up because I love doing amateur movies. Our class had 7 boys, me, my 2 friends, 3 guys that were known for being lazy AF and unfun to work with, and another guy who is useless in the story. So me and my friends had to be paired in teams with the 3 other guys, but at least we were 3 willing to work, and one of the other guys looked to be willing to work seriously with us. Before we started working on the script, a group of girls were missing 2 people in their team, and my friend just joined them, leaving me with the 3 slackers. The whole process was a nightmare. We had a shared account on Google to keep the script and video clips so we could all work on the project even when we were not at school. The script, that I almost entirely wrote, was often griefed by one of the guy who found it funny to put racial slurs all over the script. While filming, my teammates kept dragging on and doing nothing. The racial slurs guy purposely took 2 hours to read correctly 1 sentence in front of the camera. We were not moving forward as fast as we were supposed to, so the teacher was suspicious of what we were doing. One day, I was forced to miss school because of a dentist appointment, and those suckers decided to take advantage of my absence to go tell the teacher that it was all my fault for everything, including griefing the script. When I got back in the afternoon, I was stared at by the whole class and was promptly told by my teammates and by the teacher that I was now out of the project and would be getting a 0 if I did not give a complete script and a 5min plus movie. But it was for the next Monday, so I had only a weekend to make a half a year project. So I couldn't do anything and got a 0. I was pee out of my mind. AMD. Then I remembered the shared account. I went back, deleted the entire script and replaced the movie with a corrupt file, which they did and checked before giving it to the teacher. I don't know how, but the teacher managed to reserve a whole movie theater room for the sighting, and all the English students were there. I was able to see their confused looks as their movie didn't play, and everyone else too, since we all had a sheet with which movie was coming next. When the teacher checked, there was no script and no movie, so they got a 0 too. And since they forgot I could have still accessed the project, I got no crap and the blame went to them. I might have not passed my English class that year, but I made sure neither did them. TLDR. Teammates ruin a project, put the blame on me and make me have a 0, so I make them fail the class too. When I was a teenager, my second job ever was at Journeys. My manager was terribly irresponsible. He would leave me alone at the store even though he wasn't supposed to do that. He kept the back room a mess so that merchandise would get lost back there and our inventory would be off. He'd steal commission from our sales by ringing them under his name. But most egregiously, he habitually turned a blind eye when his friends would shoplift when they visited. Our shrink rate was sky high, like thousands and thousands of dollars of merchandise missing from a small store in a suburban mall. When he finally got caught, he implicated the whole staff, so they fired literally everyone. I was devastated. I had a hard time getting another job after that for a while. Turns out getting fired from your second job ever for being implicated in a shoplifting scheme is a really bad look. I hope that guy is still rotting in retail heck. Thanks a lot, Ray. Freaking Ray. When I was in grade 10 we were assigned to do some report in science class. The two girls I was assigned to work with were lazy and dumb. For background, I knew one of the girls as she used to be in my elementary and used to bully me cause I was a keener. What she didn't know is that I chilled out more in high school. With that said, Chem was my best subjects and I had almost 100 in the class, but those two were just passing. Anyways, to get back to the story, this was the final project and if we did well on this, it would count for 30% of our mark and the final would be only 10%. But anything under a 70 meant that the project would be 10% but the final would be 30%. So since the girls didn't contribute, I did not hand in the project. The teacher found this weird for me but I just kept making excuses until they forgot. Anyways, come 2 weeks later, they get the news they had a 0. They confronted me and I told them they didn't do frick all so I didn't either. Said both of you are now failing and I still had an 80 so have fun in here next year. Like expected they both failed the class and I got 95% on my final. When I was a kid, I was at a Chinese restaurant sitting next to my uncle. As he put his teacup down, he spilled some on the tablecloth. So I laughed at him. He laughs too. Then he takes my teacup and upends it on the table in front of me then says to my dad, "Hey, look at this mess." I mean, that's it's normal to make a mess in a dim sum restaurant, but still. I worked as a mechanic and tow truck driver for this man. I had a class A CDL. I could drive any class truck and was a master mechanic, but my specialty was older cars with carburetor. Anyway, he had a contract with a major moving van company, where people can rent a truck to move themselves. This man would go on a service call where a customer left the lights on, replace the batteries, charge rental company for new batteries, take the batteries he took out of van, recharge them and do it over and again. Rental company was paying for new batteries that were not new. They had been used over and over. Saw him once taking new tires off a rental truck that fit his tow truck. When I left, I called rental company and told them, "Oof, that's a major lawsuit waiting to happen." Sort of in the middle of this kind of thing right now. My boss threatened that if I ran off his favorite worker, that he'd shut the business down. There are a number of vital functions that only I can perform in that office. Nobody else is even close to being trained to do them. He's allowed me to become too important. This is not an ego thing. I'm looking for a job. When I leave, he'll have to close down. Truly. Pre-takedown story. Nice. Not sure if this counts, but in high school I played quarterback and started my freshman and sophomore year junior varsity. When I moved up to varsity my junior year I was a backup, which is fine, but I didn't see eye to eye with our new coach. He said he'd give me playing time but one day pulled me into his office and said he wouldn't be doing that. He gave me an ultimatum: either I go down to JV again and be their quarterback or I don't play and stay on the bench. I said cool, okay, I quit. He was like, what? His assistant coaches were begging me to stay and said they'd start me at any position I wanted, but at that time I enjoyed running track more anyways. Now here's where the taking you down with me comes into play. The next game or so the starting QB gets hurt and guess who has no backup QB? He was subbing randoms in and was so desperate my friends told me he considered looking for a QB in the stands. Needless to say they lost that game badly. He apologized to me years later, but yeah, I really enjoyed that. You quit or you do nothing, your choice. Okay, I quit. Wait, that's illegal. My friend in high school dumped me and insulted me, so I told his girlfriend about him cheating with 3 other girls. I screenshotted the text and everything. When I was in grade 6, I waited all recess to use the swing. Right when it was my turn, a kid a year younger stole it and I asked him to get off politely, but he didn't get off. I got really pee and tried roll the seat under him to get him off forcefully. Then he got up and punched me in the rib and then face. I didn't really feel it though. The fact is, we both got in trouble. Part of me kind of knew something like this would happen when I pushed him off. Got assigned to a pretty bad group in a school project, programming, with this guy who claimed to know everything as my co-programmer while the 2 others in my group were doing the research, marketing and writing aspects. First couple of meeting went pretty okay, mostly brainstorming, which for my fellow programmer became more like boasting his skills. We decided I would handle the interface and he would make sure it connected to the system we were building. But dude proceeds to not come to 6 meetings in a row and not respond to emails, text messages and calls. We thought he had dropped out, leaving me with very little time to finish everything. Teacher understood but still wanted a finished product. We were working in a language I had never used before and starting from scratch was incredibly difficult. I decided to take one for the team and just take the blame for the project failing. 1 week before the due date, this dude shows up all jolly like, "So guys, how far are we?" fully expecting us to be done and get a decent grade. He couldn't believe we didn't finish it and had made nothing himself. At this point we were sick of him and tried kicking him out of the group, but the slimy snake he was, he went to the teacher with some sob story and got a second chance. From the teacher, not from us. Due date, just the 3 of us. He's nowhere to be seen. Teacher gave him another freaking chance of getting a grade, claiming well he worked on the code so we can at least grade him on that, but he'll lose points over the presentation. That was too much for me. So I let my mates present their part and just deleted my code then and there, showing nothing and taking a massive fall. Frick it, I decided to drop out already, but this scumbag was coming with me. He actually showed up when we were all at the bus station waiting to go home, and after hearing of our massive defeat he thought he could sweet talk the teachers into a third chance. I wish I could have been there when they asked him for his work. Must have been beautiful. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.